Did you get on a new med? What's going on?
New meds. I'm drinking electrolytes.
Got it.
And not
smart.
Not energy drinks.
There's no caffeine in those electrolytes?
Nope. I've had 12.
Is there any
a
little bottle you have to squeeze 6 drops into it or something?
No.
Crazy.
Here comes whatever BS thing that he's going to grimace at in 10 minutes. That's going to distract us from the whole freaking show because he's going to put some drops in it. And he's going to walk around. Well, the guest is talking, expecting us to pay attention. So what horrible thing are you going to do to yourself today, Jay?
I am going to show you the greatest invention ever. Look at this, Dom.
Toothpick, yeah.
I'll call Trump and let him know you surrendered to the trade war. Canada has surrendered. We just got it. Jay Ashton.
You want to fix trade war, you just get toothpicks with flags on it. And stab No, I want to talk a little bit about what we're going to be talking about with our guests today. And
heavy duty.
Obviously, this is a there's a law I actually got to put out here before we get started. Is one, we know that Mr. Beck is in Florida right now, and Dominic, myself, are up here in Canada, and our guest is in Canada as well. And I think it's so great that we can have a show together. And we don't even, I actually forget sometimes that you're in the States and we're in Canada, and we don't really see this. And I want to make sure that the political environment does not separate us.
Well, I think that is it right there. Political separation. I am a fan of killing any party system and just get down to beliefs as opposed to
exactly
your side or my side because some obscure line makes us oppositional. It's stupid.
It's almost childish. It's almost like we're in the sandbox and we're picking on Dominic.
We're all on the same team. This is getting. I can say nationalism or globalism or whatever, but.
Yeah, we're in this thing together. We got
what I think the party would want. I'd rather do what my conscience tells me than what the some of all the various evils stacked up to equal whatever agenda.
Exactly, and that's what
I don't prescribe to sides. I'm sideless.
I'm sideless. I'm more worried about the asteroid that's going to take us out in 2032.
Oh, it's only a city size. It's not an ELE.
Okay,
Saskatoon can take the hit.
Dominic,
population density. We've talked about this.
Okay, sorry. Anyways, I just want to put that out there because I think the discussion that we're going to have today with our guests is going to be really good around this. And there's some things out there that I want to talk about when it comes to the situation that we're in the industry. Obviously, we have a lot of restaurants that really are kind of in flux. Is that a word, Dom?
That's not a word, but sounded
like a Yiddish word you co-opted. Kaflux. This is kaflux.
Okay,
or you put that on your bagel in the morning with some cream cheese, a little bit of flux.
It sounded good though. But I do want to talk about it because I feel a lot of people are in a pause mode. We're trying to look for answers. I don't know if we have all the answers, and I think that's the thing that's going to be good about this. So I'm excited to bring our guest in here after our intro and really get down to a lot of stuff that's happening around tariffs and the economic pressures that we're seeing out there. And a little bit about the trends that are going to come around. Hopefully, we're going to see some of these trends coming through.
I wasn't playing trumpet. That's my weird way of putting my hand up. So tell me who this guest is. I saw his name, but just for the audience and the people, like
I keep telling you, you have to wait till we do the intro. After the intro.
Okay, so there's an intro coming.
It's a little bit of a teaser.
Okay. It's like a teaser. It's called the hook. It's called in podcast world. It's called you plant the hook.
Oh, but we're not a podcast.
Yes. Oh, we're not a podcast.
No, see.
Dom, you okay, Dom? You look better. Filters up.
Yeah, filters. Filters on maximum today.
Oh, is this pollen? Is that what we're talking about? You got some HIPAA?
He's got pollen. What?
Well, I don't know. Filters to the air.
Let's do the intro. I want to get our guest. He's one of the smartest people in this industry.
Then let us know.
Have him on our show
time. Shall I?
Here we go.
Here it comes.
Welcome, Vince, to the Late Night Restaurant Show. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Hello, Jay. Thanks for having me. Great to see you again.
Excellent.
Hi,
Well, you know,
Hello.
Sorry for the late reaction.
Oh, hey, Vince. Didn't know you'd be in here. Good to see you.
There you go.
Here's
Good
my
to see
outfit.
everybody, too.
All right, awesome.
Lots of smiling faces.
awesome. Well, Vince, we got a lot of questions for you. Dominic's been just pondering over this stuff over the last few months. And we've got a lot of questions here and a lot of stuff around tariffs. But first of all, as we say to all of our guests, can you give us a little bit of who you are, what you do, and the company that you work for?
Sure thing. Thanks so much, Jay. So my name is Vince Sgabellone, and I'm the Canadian Food Service Industry Analyst for Circana. And Circana is a research company, and we bring information to the market on the consumer and the consumer behavior, what they're buying, how they're buying, why they're buying. And I analyze all those behaviors on behalf of my food service industry clients. And here in Canada, we track about 12 different industries in terms of consumer spending patterns. So we like to say we analyze the complete consumer, and we do it better than anybody else.
I'd have to agree.
Oh, thank
I
you.
agree with you. All right.
Cool.
Dominic, you have a question?
Oh, no, I don't have a question. I have a comment, though.
Okay.
I think a lot of people see like consumer data, blah blah blah. But Circana, the consumer would never know who Circana is, would they?
Probably not. No, we are a B2B sort of a company. We collect the data and we share it with our clients. Occasionally, you'll see us quoted in ads and whatnot.
Right. How does how would the food service industry know you? How do you connect with them? How do you get that data? What makes you better at it doing it than anybody else? Before we get into what we're going to talk about.
Sure. There you go. There you go. Well, Circana has been collecting food service industry data in Canada for over 20 years now.
Wow.
We collect all of our data through online surveys, and we speak to more than 200,000 Canadians a year just for our restaurant industry data.
Holy.
So it's the most complete,
200,000.
most comprehensive data. 200,000 surveys. We're in field every day collecting data, talking to Canadians, and they tell us what they eat and why they eat and how much they spend. And so that's why we have the most complete view of the Canadian restaurant consumer, and the industry knows that. So you'll see me and our Circana Crest data. So Crest is the name of our premier database. You'll see that data quoted in magazines, elsewhere in media, on not podcasts like this one, and even on some podcasts. So I'm out there in the industry giving out my data, my information, and that's how the industry knows about us. We've been around doing this for so long.
Quick
Vince,
question.
have you always been on the food service side of it? Sorry.
Go ahead, Dom.
Yeah, I am a lifetime foodie. I've been in the food business for over 30 years now, so I'm really dating myself. A little bit of marketing, a little bit of distribution, a little bit of sales. And the last 16 years or so, I've been on the data side of the business.
Cool.
So taking all my experience and just consulting with the industry, with the food manufacturers and with the operators who are trying to figure out what is the consumer doing. And
are you pulling data from the operations as well, like PMix, for brands to understand what, based against their sales, or is it purely, or not purely, is it a survey model, or what are all the kind of some of the other dynamics that tune your data?
Yep, it's all survey based, Beck, and so we're pulling it all from the consumers, and we do speak to the industry and work with the industry closely in order to calibrate and project our data to make it the most representative data of what's actually going on out there. So we like to refer to ourselves as the data of record of the industry.
Love it.
Yeah.
Wow. First of all, I have seen Vince talk, and he's been on the show a few times with me, and I appreciate your time, Vince. What? Sorry?
He came back.
I know he came back.
Anyway.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, Vince.
That's okay.
But I have seen Vince speak many times on stage and at conferences, and the information has always been 100%. Your brand is solid. So I appreciate you spending the time with us tonight and being able to talk about the stuff that we have. That's, I think, really on the thoughts of a lot of people's minds. And I'm not sure if it's on everyone's minds in the United States yet, but I think it is definitely on the Canadian one right now. And not to make that a slam or anything, Mr. Beck, but it is definitely on every Canadian's mind right now, especially in our industry. But maybe some of it is. Maybe I'm wrong in the United States as well.
If it hits your pocketbook, it often hits your heart.
Yeah, true. Dominic, you're warming up. I see you. You're looking at the roof.
Me.
I agree. I think the people that are affected by it on the U.S. side, the manufacturers that count on Canadian goods, for sure they're talking about it.
Yeah.
I think politically they're starting to talk to their reps, their representatives, their trade reps, their congressmen, their senators to say, you can't mess with Canada. We get so much of our stuff from them, and they get so much of their stuff from us. Doug Ford said it like last week or 2 weeks ago. Ontario, the province of Ontario, is the largest purchaser of liquor in the world. And, guess what? They buy from Kentucky and they buy from the states that. So the Provincial Liquor Control Board buys a lot of booze. And if you say, hey, your biggest customer is going to pull all the booze off the shelf, to producers that means something, and they gotta talk. So yeah, I think it's good that we're talking about it. I think it's good that we have guests on like Vince to tell us about the potential impacts. And tariffs are never good for anybody. They're just not. They're not good for the consumer. They're not good for the country. They're not good for the manufacturer. They're just not good anywhere. The good thing, Jay, that I would say that's come out of this is that we're actually having the discussion about why is 80% of our trade with one place?
Mm-hmm.
It makes zero sense, right?
That's a great point, Dom. Is this a wake-up call for the Canadian economy that maybe we have been riding the coattails a little bit too long in terms of what the American economy provides for us. But nonetheless, it is very much a two-way street. So they provide to us, we provide to them. I was doing some research today, and they were, while the American consumer might not have a sense of what's going on with tariffs and how it's going to affect them, certainly the industry, the restaurant industry does, and that's what we're here to talk about. They are worried about their supply chain. They're worried about their oils and their grains and what's that going to do to that part of the supply chain. They're worried about their Canadian beer because apparently that's one of the top things that are imported from Canada into the U.S. So the alcohol is flowing both ways over the border there, Dom. And the restaurant industry is worried about this.
Well, it's a huge part of the huge part.
Right?
Yeah, it's a huge part. Yeah, it's a lot where the profit sits still in a lot of these businesses.
Yeah.
Right? It's a big part of that. So
there was a really good graphic of that Restaurants Canada actually put out, I think, showing the hamburger, and the bun has Canadian wheat, but it's processed, it's made, it's actually baked in California, it comes back to Canada. The bacon, the hog is born in Alberta, raised in Manitoba, but slaughtered and processed in Iowa, right? The tomatoes from Arizona. The lettuce is from New Mexico, right? We've got all these things that have multiple parts in them. So we're so highly integrated. I think, to what I sent you earlier, I think the internal political pressure is starting to mount. But again, I've said this multiple times, to President Trump's credit, like him or not, he has opened up the discussion. He's got the world scrambling to figure out what the hell are we going to do. This guy's serious. And I wish our government would stand up for Canada like he does. Our government's a bloody joke. It's a joke in the world. It's a joke. And people like Trump understand that. And they push a little button and we're scrambling around like idiots. It's terrible.
Got a little political, Dom, but he loves that. He loves that. But I agree. I agree that we are now alert more of what's going to be the effect of these come. And I think it's important that we have a plan B. And I talk with a lot of restaurants, and that's one of the biggest things I always say is, what's your plan B? Because we're, especially in this industry, and Vince, maybe I'm wrong here, but you meet a lot of operators out there. We're so reactive instead of proactive in this industry, especially a lot of independents. We kind of wait till the moment, and I feel like everyone's holding their breath right now of what's going to happen in 14 days. We're only 14 days out. Like that's what I'm concerned about, is we don't have a plan B. And not saying the country doesn't, I'm sure we do, but as restaurateurs, a lot of them don't have a plan B. And I think to what Dominic is saying here with what President Trump has done is he's made us really kind of think about that. I think a little bit more granular and more important, that we need to have a plan B. Do you find operators having plan Bs, or am I wrong, or do you find that as an opportunity as we move forward here?
I think it's definitely an opportunity. It's always good to have a contingency plan because you never know what might happen. If nothing else, the events of the last 5 years have shown us that. I think the challenge right now is we don't know what is going to happen. We don't know what the tariff's going to be on. Are they actually going to start on March 1st? Or are they just going to be announced on March 1st? Is it going to be a phased roll in or an automatic roll in? And with all that uncertainty, I think the restaurateurs are sitting back and kind of waiting and trying to figure out. I know they're doing planning. I know the manufacturers are planning and trying to figure out, well, if this happens, we'll do this. If this happens, this is how we'll respond. And there is that going on. But you can't change a supply chain. You can't change these things in 2 weeks, in 4 weeks. It takes months, years to unravel this North American economy that we have here. And it just can't be changed overnight.
No, it can't. It does take time. And I think that's the wake-up call we're getting.
Yeah.
I think is that their time is not in our favor right now. But I want to move on.
To Dom's point, Trump knows that. So he's
exactly. And I think when you're in those
in restaurant industry's defense, Jay, when you have 40 years of stable, more or less, maybe even more than 40 years, we've been integrated since 1900, like after the War of 1812, probably. But more or less, we've relied on each other and traded with each other because of proximity. But a lot of Canadian manufacturing is owned by American companies already. They have plants in Canada to satisfy the Canadian, to satisfy the Canadian economy. So the industry rightfully relied on that supply chain. It's been stable. The only instability we kind of have is in produce pricing because of weather, more or less. That's kind of the big fluctuation. And they get into these little trade wars every 4 or 5 years over cattle or lumber or something like that, and that tends to go away pretty quick. So I'm with you that we need to have a plan B. I don't fault restaurants for not having it, because suppliers have been able to supply. Almost anything needed has been there.
I know. I don't disagree with you. I agree with you on that. I think the thing is also is the restaurateurs are in survival mode in other areas. Yes. They're worried about labor. They're worried about they're worried about the inflation that we're just. I don't know if we're out of that yet, or if we are seeing a product starting to come down in pricing. But they've had their eye over there, and this one came out. This was kind of that left hook that surprised us.
Well, is there any relief in your tax? I mean, they would think that there's a societal help with the level of taxes that your population, quote unquote, enjoys. The amount that you're levied is mind-boggling, absolutely mind-boggling. It's what 70%, some crazy amount. Am I talking about my hat here?
No, I don't know the exact number. It's very high. You're probably right. Like by the time you got provincial tax,
what I make goes away, or three quarters of what I make goes away.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, and here they wouldn't do that because we all have guns and we go find somebody because of that. I mean,
it's the American way.
Yeah. Hopefully, there's relief coming from the powers that be for that buffer.
Well, I don't know. On the inflation side, again, a lot of people would argue that the government's responsible for a lot of that inflation. Canada's had a disproportionate amount of inflation. The federal government would like to tell you that, hey, this is a worldwide problem, and to some extent it has been. But we've been disproportionately hit in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Ours has been much higher, and it's been it's longer sustained at a higher rate. So I'm with you, Jay. I think the industry, well, they can't take another hit. There's just too many, right? There's just been too many. I don't see the government giving relief. There's sort of been this GST holiday on food service for a couple months. I think that helped in some of the provinces that had the HST. Like they had a couple months of reprieve on food service and some goods that weren't getting charged the tax. Now, some provinces have a higher rate of that tax, and here in Alberta we have just a flat 5%. Ontario, I think it's 13%.
Yeah, so we've had a pretty decent reduction.
Right, and I think the industry saw a bit of a bump, right?
Yep, there was a little bit of an uptick, not so much in visits, and actually spending seemed to stay flat, but that extra 5 to 13%, depending on where you are in the country, went to the operator instead of to the government. So people knowing that they didn't have to pay tax on their meal were saying, oh, I can afford dessert today, or I'll have that second beer, or I'll take the family out instead of just going out, my wife and I. And so they padded their bills a little bit and spent the same amount, but it was spending on the menu rather than spending to the taxman.
Are you seeing any spending? Like, it seems like there's an opportunity here, Vince, where dry goods are things that are shelf stable that might be impacted, that you could buy ahead and secure a price first. I mean, is there anything
no holiday on that,
or even or equipment for that matter? And
there was no holiday on that. There was no holiday on that.
No, and buying ahead regarding the tariffs isn't going to work. Most of what we're buying is fresh produce. So, you can't buy that ahead. And, you talk about who's going to get hurt. Jay, you're asking, what are the operators doing? Well, the operators who are going to be hardest hit by this are, again, just like during the pandemic 5 years ago, it's going to be the independents, the little chains with 1, 2, 5 shops. There's no planning they can do. They rely on their supplier base. They've got a handful of trusted suppliers that they turn to supply them with everything. And there's nothing they can do. They don't do their own manufacturing. They don't do their own importing. They are reliant on a supplier base. And that supplier base is going to have their hands tied. Maybe they can forward buy a little bit on some dry goods and whatnot. But generally, the price is just going to be impacted. And
that paper straws have gone through the roof, I heard.
I was going to say Darwin's theory, I think, is going to kick in again onto our industry like it did through COVID, unfortunately. And I do think, but I want to just kind of switch topics here because I'm dying to ask this question to Vince so bad. It's just because I hear a lot of this. And I wrote some articles recently, and hopefully you can read my rebuttal to the GST and HST break, because I have a different theory on that, and I can share with you later, but it's in one of my articles I just wrote. But I do want to talk a little bit about this tariffs and I call it like the ripple effect of tariffs, of when we have products that are not necessarily tariffed in their Canadian product, are we going to see some of those prices increase? And is there other things when we look at the hidden cost of tariffs? Does that play into effect with this, Vince? Like, should we also worry just overall stuff's going to go up with or without the tariffs? Products are going to go up. Are you guys seeing some of that?
I think we're going to see that. Yes. I haven't seen the full list from the federal government yet on what they are going to tariff coming in from the U.S. Alcohol was already mentioned. I know orange juice is near the top of that list. So there is going to be an impact on the restaurant industry, and it's going to be immediate, and the restaurant industry will have no option but to pass those costs down to the consumer. And it's always been like that. So with the high inflation over the last 3 years, it's moderated now, but through 21 and 22 in particular, they had to pass that on to the consumer. The consumer in the beginning was okay because they were happy to be able to go to restaurants again and they'll pay whatever price. But eventually they realized, gee, it's getting expensive. And even though restaurant inflation now is down at around historical levels, call it 2 or 3, 4% maybe, they're looking at their bill and thinking, well, this is 20% higher than it was 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And they're feeling that because, their salaries haven't necessarily gone up 20 to 40%. And everything else they buy has also gone up. Their home heating fuel and their groceries have all gone up. And. So it all adds up, and the restaurant industry is going to get hit hard again. Like you said, Jay, they're already dealing with low profitability because there's still the labor shortages, and there's a lot of them took on debt during the pandemic that they're still paying down, and they're dealing with the backlash from the consumer, who isn't necessarily blaming the restaurateur for high prices, but is still adjusting and moderating their spend accordingly and saying, I'm not going out to restaurants as much, or I'm not spending the way I used to because it's just too darn expensive. And if that goes up, they're going to respond again.
I think some restaurants have amplified that feedback from the consumer by having a 20 and 25% tip option as the default versus a 12 and 15 or 18.
Sure.
So I hear that. I hear that all the time. I was also going to say that, we've got inflation, we've got the possibility of tariffs, we've got some of these other things. We also have a very weakened Canadian dollar. So anything we buy from the US, which is a lot of stuff, especially produce, already it's more expensive. We've got a 70-cent dollar. So when you go and buy that on the market, that might cost you $1.45 to buy an American dollar, not $1.30 or $1.35. It's cost you $1.40, $1.45. So you got a 40% minimum bump on anything you buy out of the U.S. So that's in the winter months, our produce, like you said, Vince, that's a massive thing. So I don't see Canada imposing a counter tariff on U.S. produce because it's just going to penalize the Canadian consumer, right? That would definitely hurt though, because thousands and thousands of trailers that depart California and Arizona every day would stop rolling, right? And that stuff's just going to rot in the field.
Yeah.
It's ugly. So Vince, two things here. I want to try to figure this out because this is another question I have for you. So we have operational, food cost, labor cost, tariffs, consumer confidence. Where is the consumer confidence right now? And are we going to see that dip down? I'm assuming it's going to go down. Is that more of a fear? Because restaurateurs are going to have to, and I was talking to a customer today about this, is that we're going to have to bring that confidence back into the marketplace about coming out and dining out, because they're going to want to go out, but they're going to make a lot of different decisions. Is that something people should be looking at?
I think that is the number one impact of the tariffs, Jay. It's the consumer is already a little bit freaked out. We've got major change in government, shakeup in government, still dealing with high inflation, and now there's this whole tariff thing hanging over our heads. and the consumer is a little bit freaked out economically, and they don't know what to think. And when that happens, they pull back. They pull back on their spending. They pull back on their discretionary spending. And the number one area of discretionary spending in the Canadian economy is, any guesses? It's restaurants, of course.
Yeah.
Right? We all have to eat every day. We don't have to eat out. It's $100 billion industry in Canada. And that's more than I mentioned off the top, that we track 12 different spending categories in Canada. Technology, toys, video games, fashion, beauty. Food service accounts for 60% of our discretionary spending in Canada. It's bigger than all those other groups combined.
60%?
About 60% of all the 12 groups that we capture is food service. And because we go out a lot, we love our restaurant meals. And so when you tell the consumer that, the economy is going to be struggling, it's going to be kind of weird the next couple of months, they're going to pull back. And that's what all of our surveys say. I look at other people's surveys, same thing. Consumer confidence, to your direct question, Jay, is dropping. And when consumer confidence drops, people spend less on discretionary. So that's when the restaurant industry needs to respond. That's what they need to respond to. Yeah, high prices are horrible, but the thing is to, as much as you can, to get away from selling food to selling experiences. And because people will still treat themselves, they still want to take care of themselves, they still want that special night out with their family and their loved ones or their friends. And when you're doing that, they're not looking at price. They want a foodie adventure. They want food exploration and flavor exploration. So if you focus on those things as an industry, you can help to mitigate some of the fear over prices and costs.
So Vince, can you turn?
Jay, we've been preaching this for nearly 2 years. Experience, service. Like you're stuck with what you got to buy. The beef price is the beef price. The pork price is the pork price. You can make a difference in the experience. So we're a training company. We talk about training all the time, but up the level of service. Raise your standards on service. Raise your standards even on the meal, right? You're still going to charge what you're going to charge.
Yep.
How do I make that better? How do I offer more value? And the value is not necessarily in the portion size. It might be in presentation. It's very well going to be in the service. If you can do an outstanding job on the service side, people will remember that. The meal can actually be mediocre.
Service is the great bread of a meal sandwich. That's what makes it all go down.
Wow.
But Vince, can you
stuff in the middle? But if the service sucks, it just blows all of what you just got, either in the wrong direction or the right one.
It really can compensate for a lot. You're right.
Yeah.
Vince, can you?
Dominic, is the point you were making about do some enhancements to dishes? We saw a really interesting version of that this weekend. Guy Fieri opened up a new restaurant out here. It's Guy's Chicken, right? And he had fried dumplings, which were pot stickers, right? And you could tell these are some Cisco pot stickers, but he add a little zhuzh, some sauce, a couple of scallions over the top, and instead of the $6 would have made sense. It was $12, and we gleefully ate it because it looked like it was worth it. You know, and so just a little bit of presentation goes a long way, especially if you add a little flavor in that anchors it to some slight difference, right? The umami or whatever.
And how many people took a picture of those pot stickers and posted it to their social media before they took a bite? Our phones eat before we do.
Yep. And that is advertising. That's visual, it's beautiful and enticing and craveable, all those things you want.
You got it.
So this is my hook around. That's what we call this in podcast world, is the hook around.
You're not a podcast. Stop saying it.
Sorry, this is the hook around on shows like this. This is why I believe the amount of energy that went into the 5% reduction of GST and PST should have been put into marketing our industry and helping restaurants with their business on how to show experiences. It would have been roughly about $3 to $5 billion in growth annually for our business, opposed to the 1.5 billion that we saw. That is what I'm thinking about, is put the money into the marketing of our industry. Because Vince, I don't know if you were a part of it, but when we launched, I was a part of the committee on the dining out on Wednesdays during the pandemic. Remember the dining out on Wednesday? I was the one that also helped with the concert and stuff that we put across Canada. We actually did see a movement because we all focused on that together as an industry. We promoted dining out was fun on Wednesdays. I think that was kind of the logo, but that's what we focused on. And we actually did see a move in the overall market in the industry. And I think that's I always find that these things that sometimes we get stuck on are a little bit easier to do. And I'm not saying that's not hard, like not easy. Like it's hard. Don't get me wrong, but it's that whole thing of teaching. I'm going to screw this up down, but teaching you how to fish opposed to doing it for you is what we need to do. And I think that's what I look at this industry is right now. We need to teach people how to fish and how to market their business, how to show what experience looks like. And I think it was a show with you, Beck, and Chef Steve out of California when I said, we need to get on social media and be authentic. And he said, well, I don't know what that means because my authentic is different than your authentic. And Dominic's experience is different than my experience when I go to dine out.
Absolutely.
Right? I think we have to define that. We need to coach people and we need to support people through this journey more and more and understand what that means when we say you need to show more value. Well, I thought I do already. I already have a big plate of pasta, or I already have it home cooked, or it's fresh food. I love when I always ask restaurants, what makes you different? And they say fresh food, home cooked, and something else. Usually three things, but it's always fresh food opposed to not fresh. I think that'd be bad for business. And home cooked. Usually don't promote frozen entrees, those kind of things. So I always ask, what's that unique selling point that makes you different? And I think there's opportunity there when you look at helping these restaurants grow. But that's my hook around,
Jay.
If that makes sense.
I'm with you. Let's not diminish what the industries like Restaurants Canada has done, advocating for the
no,
tax
I
breaks.
agree. I
like what they're doing now is they're saying make these tax breaks permanent. Don't charge GST or PST, period, on dining out. Period. Just get rid of it. And worse yet are the payroll taxes.
I agree. Well, was my next question for
Vince. And that just went up, I think, or it's going up on January 1st, I think, or April 1st. We're getting another spike in that. So they have to. It's like I think it's like everything else. You have to have multiple things happening because there's multiple threats, right? There's lots of hits coming.
I agree, but I don't disagree with what
export more oil, so our dollar goes up, right? It makes it cheaper for us to buy produce from California. Shit.
I know. Vince, can one turn the consumer confidence around? Does that happen quick, or is it a long, big ship to turn around?
I think it drops quickly. I think it comes back much more slowly.
Does it?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a ratchet effect. So yes, you can turn that around. And the other thing is Canadians love their restaurant meals, whether it's their favorite cup of coffee or it's that $200 steak dinner that they have once a year on their special day. They love going out to restaurants. And that's why we did see, and you were promoting and I was helping to promote, as soon as restaurants started to open, people started flooding back in.
Yep.
Because they missed it. They missed those experiences. They missed gathering with family and friends. Friends and then family. Families come second in terms of gathering. That's what the data says. There you go. So they missed going out and enjoying a night out or a day out or an afternoon out at restaurants. And so, yeah, there will be an immediate hit, I think, and then it's going to start to recover. The question still becomes, though, and this is more of a question maybe for others rather than myself, is what is that hit that the restaurateur takes operationally? Because they're going to have to absorb some of these cost increases themselves. There's going to be somewhat of a drop in visits right off the top. And to your point earlier, Jay, it's going to be that small restaurateur who's going to feel the hit right away, and there's going to be some attrition in the industry again.
Yeah, and I think the big thing too is I think right now we have to capitalize on who's in our restaurant right now. And I think Beck, we had a show, I forget the other gentleman the other day, I think it might have been Josh, is just the fact that we need to get those bill sizes bigger right now, getting that extra drink, getting the appetizer, capitalizing on now opposed to drawing in new customers is the more the focus is on is increasing those bill sizes right now. Yeah. And I think that's tricky when you have consumer confidence because you got them in there and how do I get more out of them now?
Yeah, that's got to be worried about what they're spending. Yeah, that is they're not so quick to reach in their back pocket, right?
Yep.
Every little bit.
Well, one of the concepts you speak about marketing is that I've heard a number of times in the last couple of weeks is one-on-one marketing, micro marketing, me marketing. You've got that table of consumers and it's all about them for the time that they are in the restaurant. So they don't care what you are marketing to the next table. They don't care what the special of the day is if they don't like it. So you've got to figure out what that one consumer wants. Mm-hmm. Now that's a little bit exaggerated. It's difficult to do that, but big marketing programs just don't work the way they used to. People want to be spoken to as an individual, not as a collective. Think about just last week with the Super Bowl. Anybody remember any of the Super Bowl ads? They used to be the social event of the season, and now, whatever. Oh yeah, there's a football game. Let's watch the football.
Right.
These mega marketing campaigns just don't have the impact that they used to. It's all about the one-to-one marketing. That's where things like loyalty programs and email programs come in, customization on menus and personalization. So that's one marketing technique that will help the restaurant industry to again market itself and keep people interested and engaged and coming back for those experiences.
Vince, what's your take on the community involvement right now? Like getting closer to the community is important right now?
I think that's always been important. Again, one of the COVID era programs that a lot of people are supporting, businesses, industry, and the consumer, was shop local. Help the local person. They were the ones who were hit the hardest. They didn't have the corporate backup, the corporate infrastructure to help them through those challenging times. So people are helping local. And we're seeing some of that really is continuing in the market. If we look at what's going on in quick service in particular, and quick service is about almost 2/3 of all visits in the restaurant industry. And if we look at what's going on there, you see the big players, the legacy players, they're doing okay. They're moving along and taking care of their clients, but all the growth is with the small operators, the small to medium operators who really came to the forefront during the recovery of the pandemic in 21 and 22, and they are taking share away from the bigger operators. And a lot of it is because of everything we've talked about here. They have a different experience. They're more authentic. Yeah, they're a little bit more expensive typically, but they're providing better value for the money. And they're providing all of everything that the consumer is demanding right now, those exciting flavors and something new and different and unique. And it's not like the legacy operators, the big QSR operators, are going away. They're not. They provide an excellent service and excellent meals to the community. But we're seeing this shift over to those smaller operators right now.
Dominic, you okay?
I'm good, Jay.
Just the wellness check on Dom.
Wellness check.
So
I'm good.
So when we look at this now, there's some crazy stuff that, not crazy, I guess, wrong word to use, but some really innovative ideas that are coming out right now. Is there anything else that you see right now, Vince? We talk about subscription base. I've heard that come up a little bit right now. This whole thing around, I love the idea around me marketing. I think that's brilliant. But I also heard a lot of co-op marketing right now where restaurants are sharing marketing space, collaborations, brand collaborations as well. We've seen a little bit that in the past. Do you think a lot of those things are going to be effective when we are in the pickle if these tariffs do hit? Or is it something that's just going to go to the wayside and restaurants just really need to focus on that experience?
Well, these all become part of the experience. You mentioned brand collaboration. So if If you are a fan of one of the products that the other brand is supporting, then you will go out and try that. That'll be part of your experience. Whether it's potato chips on a burger, or it's trying to think of some of the other ones. Wasn't expecting to chat about this, but just there are these a number of collaborations that there have been over the last year or so, and we're seeing these brands getting together. I know one of my favorite one was the Coca-Cola and Oreo. So there was a flavored Oreo and an Oreo flavored cola. So if you're an Oreo fan, you're going to go out and try that cola. And if you're a cola fan, you're going to go try that Oreo cookie. And neither of those brands are going to sell billions and billions of units, but it creates buzz, it creates marketing, it's talking to their consumer. They're saying, hey, Oreo consumer, we heard you. You want something new and different, unique. Here it is. Go buy it. And they will. They will support that. And then it goes away and they move on to the next promotion. And that's how this micro marketing works, where you're talking to one very small sliver of the population, of your customer base, and you're telling them what they want to hear.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Beck.
Well, I was thinking things are cyclical, right? Or typically. And so have there been economic patterns or consumer patterns that resembled this, let's say in the last 80 years, 100 years that we've been tracking? And if so, what was the lesson from that, if things are in fact cyclical, and is there similarity?
I think the similarity is that whenever there is a downturn, consumers will come back, in Canada anyway. That's what we've seen. We saw it in the 2008, 2009 recession.
Yeah. And
people thought, oh my goodness, the bottom is falling out of the economy. Now, the Canadian economy was not hit as hard as some global economies at that time. Mm-hmm. And you remember, Dom, our dollar was worth $1.05 at that time.
I was just recently in Florida. My sister and brother-in-law bought a place in Tampa because of that.
Sure.
He was just here.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. And so what we learn is that when there is this pullback, from a restaurant standpoint anyway, the consumer will come back. They will come back as soon as things stabilize, as soon as they get their footing again, they will come back. Now it's going to be an industry that's going to look different.
I think they come back to the people that also supported them during that, right? That were there with them, that maybe tried to offer some value or help the community. Back to what we were saying earlier, if the restaurant stays engaged with the community and is marketing to what Jay was saying, the community, they remember that, because our connection is to, sometimes it's to the chain, but most often it's to the people at that place, right? As much as it is to the food.
Yeah, there's that shop local and support local mentality again. Sure.
Another thing that I was thinking about too is, and I've been listening because I'm a fourth wheel on this bus, a tire made in America, and that's why I'm not cannonballing in, but I think there's something interesting that. So we have these, back to the cyclical thing. So we have these tariffs, and we're talking about how it impacts people, and it feels more like this is a game of defense. Right. This is from the sound of the conversation, this is a defensive game. What is the offensive game that people should take? What is it that you rally and go? Because in any situation, I would argue there is an opportunity for somebody that can see the opportunity. Where are the opportunities? So let's talk about that. Like, if there are, because it feels like there should be something here, unless it is purely a wall. And
there's a massive move to buy Canadian, just because of the threat. So if anything, it's been a rallying call to say, hey, wake up, because this is real. It's not there. President Trump isn't joking about this. He's saying it to multiple countries, right? So I think that's one of the things. I think the opportunity is on the manufacturers that can offer value in Canada. Some people might not go back to buying U.S. product.
Yeah.
I think
America rode high on that for a long time, and we honored it until what? But the '80s, when really the Japanese influx of Japanese goods really seemed like we started taking them more. Let's outsource overseas, and we heard the same alarms about China and about Japan. Then they're buying property here. There's a lot, we owe them a lot of money. Very similar analogs to where we are now with China. We got really comfortable sending everything overseas, right? And Buy American went away. It was more of a very convenient phrase every now and then. It used to be I at least felt that way as a child, that it was a banner. And it feels like the countries that get that, if you look at the delta of the things that you can provide yourself versus what you're dependent on, why wouldn't you source the things that you do nationally to benefit your people
the problem for us has been exactly the same as what you had in auto manufacturing. We've outsourced so much. We've shipped production so much. The pandemic really didn't teach us anything, because it was over, and all of a sudden the drive to bring production home and make masks and stuff back in Canada, where the Canadian ones are 2 pennies more expensive than the Chinese ones, so we'll keep buying the Chinese ones, right? So the and I don't know that this is going to do it. To be honest with you, I don't.
Yeah.
Because to what Vince said at the beginning, a lot of putting these supply chains in place took years, not weeks, months, but years to get to the point we're at. So they're not going to easily get broken down and cut.
No,
25% would be a pretty good incentive, though, to figure out something different, right?
Yeah.
So I think the building up of, I saw an ad today on microgreens in Ontario, and the ad was very specifically grown here in Ontario for Ontario. They were marketing to, you don't have to buy this from the States. And they were putting up, they opened their 4th facility in Canada. That was their ad, right? They're I think they're going to be putting one here in Airdrie, Jay, in Western Canada. Cool. They have one in BC already. They have one in Southern Ontario, and I think there's one outside of Montreal. So the offense, and I think, I don't know if the federal government has one, but the offense is, we're gonna hit you tariff for tariff. We're gonna hit you on stuff that hurts your consumers, because that's where the feedback has to come back from, right? The consumer has to say, hey, I don't want my fuel to be $1 more a gallon.
Yeah.
So I think there is an offense, and I think the opportunity is, it's a long ways away, because you ain't breaking that 30, 40, 50 year supply chain overnight. Yeah. It's really, really hard.
Yeah, it's physics, right? Object in motion continues in motion unless that's done by an equal or opposite force. That needs to be a big effing force.
Yeah. And you know what? I give credit to President Trump. He knows it. He knows it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Vince, as we wrap up here, thanks, Tom, for that answer to Mr. Beck.
I think this is the heaviest talk I've had here.
I was going to be like, that might be the biggest question Dominic's ever answered without looking at the roof.
It was a Rain Man moment. He fetched that back from his lizard brain.
I know. Both of you guys, I was like, what podcast am I on? Vince, as we wrap up here, first of all, I want to thank you again for spending the time with us. If you could tell restaurants right now, to our couple fans that we have,
hey,
what
Bob.
would you say to them? Yeah, hey, Bob. And Tony, if you could say anything to them right now as we get into 14 days left, what are you going to say to them? What would you say to them right now if you're at a restaurant and the owner sat down with you? What would you say to them, Vince?
I would say right now is to focus on the consumer. What is the consumer looking for? We were talking earlier thinking, as soon as the tariffs hit, that's it. All talk about trends are off. And I would say that is not the case at all. This is the time to double down on the trends. What is it that's driving restaurant consumers into the restaurants, and focus on those? And they're looking for, where we talked about experience, They're looking for flavor exploration. They're looking for global flavors. They're looking for new and different and exciting and Instagrammable. And they're looking for things, again, that are marketed right directly to them. So is your app talking to them, or is your app just like everybody else's app? So double down on those things. Double down on snacking and small occasions, because younger people like to go out when they feel like going out, and they're not eating 3 square meals a day. So have something ready for them when they come in. People are looking for value and deals, and it's as much about finding a deal as it is about the price. So make sure, again, you're providing that value for money, not just a cheap price. And that will help get people in. So these are the things that you have to double down on, and then do everything you can to learn what the Gen Z consumer is all about, because every year another chunk of that cohort enters their income earning years, and they are a force to be reckoned with, and they're a lot different in the way they shop and spend than most of us on this call. Anyway,
right? They drink a lot less. I saw a stat today.
But they eat a lot more. Do they eat more?
Not in some places in Canada, though. I'm really concerned about the alcohol intake.
They don't drink less. They drink different. They drink differently.
Oh,
they do a lot of things differently. So as the Gen X's and the Boomers are aging out of their daily restaurant routines because they're retiring, they're being replaced by the Gen Zs, and the Gen Zs are not looking for a cup of coffee and a breakfast sandwich. They're looking for stuff that's different. So understand today's consumer, but understand tomorrow's consumer. Tomorrow's consumer is completely different than yesterday's consumer. So figure that out. And regardless of what happens in the market with tariffs and pricing and import restrictions and that will get you through to the future.
I love that. That's really good.
Thanks so much, Vince.
Vince, that's
advice.
Solid.
There
that's really good advice, because I'm glad that the trends are not taking a back seat, because they're so important. But we haven't talked trends in so long. It sounds really nice to hear them again. So it does. It really does. It really does. Doesn't it, Dom?
Very nice, Jay. Very nice.
Very nice. Is it very nice to talk about that?
Yeah, it is, Jay.
I was just like,
a smile to
what's that?
Toronto?
I was gonna say,
Beck, did you go to Toronto?
Yeah, I'm here right now.
Focus.
Nice.
I was gonna say,
I slipped that in. I got all. It's all Canadian footage.
That's very nice. And it's lit up in purple, which is my corporate color. Thanks so much for that call out there, Beck.
I'm just pandering.
There you go. I love it.
He's working on it. Well, Vince, I want to thank you. And Dominic, I know we'll bring back the paralyzer one day for you. Nope. No. Okay, sorry.
There's goats running that place.
Okay. Oh my God.
Parliament of Canada.
Never mind.
They're not even sitting. They're not working.
No. I know.
Nobody in there.
I know. We don't,
the paralyzer?
Don't.
No, I'm talking about.
Sorry, back. We're distracting him. Keep it down to one slide. Anyways, Vince. Vince, it's a pleasure again. Very nice to see you. I hope to see you possibly in Toronto soon. And I just want to thank you for everything you do to the industry. You are one of the most knowledgeable people I know, and I appreciate your time. Big time.
Will you be at the NRA show? Vince, it feels like that's the place you'd be at.
Vince, you coming to Chicago?
National Restaurant Association show in Chicago?
I haven't got plans for that yet, but I will be on the main stage at the Restaurants Canada show the first week of April. So come see me there. I will be talking trends. So I'll see you on stage there, I hope.
Fantastic. And other ways that people could find you too. So if they're going to see you there, are there other appearances you'll have in the near future you want to share with anybody?
That's the first in-person one I've got. Following that, I'll be at a grocery innovation show called Cial at the end of April. Okay. And I'm appearing on a podcast in about a month's time with the Tea and Herbal Association of Canada. Ooh. And shout out to my friends over there for inviting me to appear on a little fireside chat there.
Very nice. I imagine we have a glass cup with something steeping in it while they're on the call.
There you go. I got one of those here, and you can't quite see it because of my silly background. But anyway,
okay. Well, it's a pleasure.
So,
thank you for taking my questions.
Sure. Glad to.
All the best, Vince. We'll see you soon. Everyone. Thanks so much for your time. Bye-bye.
Wow, that's a serious dude.
It's a smart guy.
Smart big guy. Compliment. Yeah. So my ADHD brain's rabbiting out while you guys are talking, and I keep coming back to tariffs. And who knew? Because you guys are talking about it. Do you guys remember Ferris Bueller, where they talked about tariffs? No, actually, do you remember? So there's a scene at the beginning of the movie where the boring teacher Ben Stein is doing roll call, right? Bueller, right?
Bueller, yeah.
And then he's giving this very boring class, and I'm going to read it to you. In 1930, and I won't do it like Ben Stein, but imagine in 1930, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of anyone, the Great Depression, passed the the tariff bill. Yeah, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which anyone raised or raised tariffs in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone know the effects? It didn't work.
Further, yeah.
And the United States sank deeper into the Great Depression. Ferris Bueller.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. Now, what I believe is slightly different is what you shared about the balancing of tariffs. I think because what may have been shared could have been a wise stroke by the guy in office saying, "Well, if you tariff us, we'll tariff you. If you don't, and we'll be good." And so maybe that is something that's different in this.
Well, his intent. Like there's been who knows how many books written about his negotiating style, but it's come out hard, come out do something drastic, and then go backwards from there, right?
Because it's called prison rules. You punch the biggest guy in the room in the face, and you take him on right away and freak everybody else out.
Yeah, he's punched a whole bunch. Like I said, the world's scrambling. Like we got within 2 weeks, we got Black Hawk helicopters. 2 weeks, Black Hawk helicopters patrolling the border. 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks of him asking for it, it happened.
Yeah, because
the RCMP
border jumpers.
The RCMP in 10 years has not deployed body cams. They've been talking about it.
Yeah.
They're going to do it. But 10 years on, we still don't have them. But you can get a Black Hawk helicopter. Like, it's important. I'm not saying it's not important. It's important.
Can you stop saying Black Hawk over and over again? Because I'm hearing the wrong thing.
I'm out.
That's usually my line back. Throw Italian in there somewhere.
I had to throw it in some body humor because that was a very serious moment, and I had to bleed off a little bit with fun and embarrassing people. So you're welcome.
Well, as long as Dominic didn't say it was like an Italian Black Hawk. All right.
Is there a Moyle that's been involved in this little journey? Is there?
No. I'm just
okay, we're good. All right, we're good. Cut the scene.
All right, here we go. Cheers.